Let's talk about horse judging. What phase of your life did judging horses and being able to look at a horse and really decide what is good and what is not so good about it, when did that really start?
Well, as a 4-H'er, of course, we did judging of livestock, cattle and hogs and all. And then when I went to Mississippi State in the livestock judging, college livestock judging teams program, several of them had the contest had horses. And that's where I really first got started into that. And I can remember today going to Fort Worth to the junior contest, and we had 2 classes of horses, and the stallion that won the class was Alita Bars, who was one of the really great horses of all times. And then 2 of the broodmares were Poco Lynn and Poco Jan, and I can see them just as clear as anything. And so then, of course, after I got out of college, stayed interested in horses and had horses. And Rusty asked me one time, says, "Don't you ever see a horse that you like?" Because I would tell her what I didn't like about each horse we saw. And so it made me realize that, I was not approaching this the right way. But my brother-in-law, who was my mentor with regard to horses, he and my sister let me go to all kind of stock shows and all with them when I was in high school and early college. And, he'd make me sit there and judge every horse that worked, and I'd have to give him a score. And, if I was correct, he didn't say anything. If I wasn't, I'd explain to him where I was wrong and whatnot. And we'd stand at the gate and watch every halter horse come in, and he'd tell me what he didn't like about each horse that came in. Never told me what he liked about him. So it's like I told Rusty, I said, well, if I don't say anything bad about him, I like him. But then I learned that I needed to change that and be more proactive.
As a youth and young adult, what do you think learning how to judge taught you? And how do you think judging helped you throughout life?
I think judging was probably the most important thing I got out of my BS career. Because, when you're judging livestock in a contest that way, you have a class of 4 animals, and you've got 10 minutes that you've got to decide what rank you should place those horses in based on their merit and possible performance potential. And then not only that, but that afternoon, after you've judged about 10 or 12 classes, you have to go and give oral reasons on half of those classes. So you take notes while you're judging. And then that afternoon, you go before somebody that you've never seen and tell him why you placed this class the way you did. And so you just learn to make a rapid decision based on learned facts and observations, and then stand up and defend your placings. And so once a person goes through that, most of those students can talk in front of people the rest of their lives. Okay, this is my grandson, Joe Armstrong III, and this is a filly called Von Sugar Lady. Von Sugar Lady is a 2-year-old that Joe will be showing in the Western Pleasure Fraternity at the New Mexico State Fair. What we look for in these horses, we call it conformation, which is strictly form to function, the way that they're made, and how that form should make them better athletes. This particular mare, as you look at her, has a very nice head. When she looks forward with us, she's very feminine. You can tell she's a mare and not a stallion. Reasonably short face, broad between the eyes, clean through the throat here where she will have to flex her neck to move and whatnot. And then she's balanced in that her neck and her body and her hip and all are essentially the same length or the same shape. And then as you look at her, she's got a long sloping shoulder here. The more the shoulder slopes, the easier the ride. This is a wither that holds the saddle on, and we want a nice prominent wither so that we don't have to tie the saddle, strap the saddle on too tight. And then she's got good depth of heart. The real thing that we like about this filly is she's so nicely muscled. If you can see the muscle here on her forearm, just really bulges out, and the inside forearm is just as good. The outside muscle throws the leg forward, but it's the inside forearm that brings the leg backwards, and that's what gives the horses the most speed. Then as we come to the back, of course we want this long hip that has a little slope on it so that she can get her feet up under herself and stop. And she's very well built in this area. You'll also notice that she has our ownership brand on her, which we refer to as the gun sight. That's Josh's brand, and we all use it. And then as you look at her, the widest part of this horse's body is right through here, what we call the stifles. She comes over the top and gets larger coming in the stifles. And then again, you look at the gasket muscle on the outside and on the inside, and this is where she gets her power. And then of course we want to be straight on their front legs and their hind legs in order that they make the best athletes possible.
While still in college, you received approval to judge all size AQHA shows. This is in 1959. You were 21.
That's correct.
That is a very big deal.
Yeah, I was very fortunate. You know, quarter horse was just getting started back in that period of time, you know, the gaining interest. And they had a judging clinic at Mississippi State University, the second one they'd had. And so we all got in, we did the deal. My brother-in-law, Elbert, had helped me so much. And so we had to judge classes, and then we go up and sit with these AQHA officials and judges and whatnot and explain to them why we'd placed them the way they did. And so based on that, I was given that opportunity. And I had the opportunity that spring, while I was still 21 years of age, to go and judge a horse show at Grapevine, Texas. Well, Grapevine was where B.F. Phillips' operation was, and he's the one that had all those horses I talked about at the Fort Worth Stock Show. And I was afraid to do it, so I wrote back and refused it, you know. And my judging team coach, Carl Williams, there at Mississippi State, he was mad at me for a long time. And so then it was a couple of years before I actually judged my first show.
Wow. What happened? Like, did you get scared, or?
I just figured I was too young, and that was such a big place. I just kind of chickened out.
Any regrets?
I regret not having done it, because I know that when I judged Sapulpa, Oklahoma, a couple of years later, which was a great big show, and this gentleman came up to me. He said, "Son, I just want you to know," said, "I didn't have any horses here today, but says you did a great job of judging those halter horses." And I think that probably gave me as much confidence to keep going as anything.
Yeah. There's a big difference between a class of 4
Right.
and a really big class.
Yeah, yeah. And we had some of the leading horses in the world, in the show world at that time, at that particular show. I remember a lot of them.
Still,
Yeah.
they're in there. Wow.